jewelry is commonplace and everyone now wears it, both men and women. So we want to look at what does the Bible say concerning it. Is it wrong? Is it a sin? How does God look at the wearing of jewelry? And as I was preparing this lesson, I became curious as to why people wear jewelry. So I began to research the reasons. So here are some of the reasons that the answers that I found, because I look at jewelry totally different. It does not have an allure to me. It does not have a pull. I worked at, where was it? It was Kohl's. I worked at Kohl's many years ago, just over the Christmas season, and I didn't have any jewelry on, and they put me in the jewelry department, and I was like, I don't know anything about jewelry. So people would come up and they'd be asking me my opinion and my thoughts on things. I was like,
it's too high, I don't need it.
It just was like, I really don't know, and I was like, I don't wear it. But they knew that they could trust me, that I wasn't going to be stealing from them, so that's why they put me there. So anyways, here's the reasons and the answers that I found. For centuries, jewelry has been seen as a form of body decoration, allowing for the expression of self and social status. Jewelry can speak of an individual's wealth, their social status, their culture, and reveal more about their self-identity. People wear it because it sparkles, it creates a focal point, and makes a person feel beautiful or pretty and more confident. Research has shown that wearing jewelry can increase an individual's self-esteem, no matter their age or social status. And I personally don't understand that, but I don't understand how that affects self-esteem, but it's what research has revealed, and that is one of the reasons that people wear it. So you can enhance and draw attention to a particular physical feature with your jewelry. Example, the ears, or they put it in their eyebrow, they put it in their nose, they put it on their tongue. That seems uncomfortable to me. Some will wear a piece of jewelry because it is connected to someone special in their life. And every time they wear it, see or touch it, it reminds them of that person. It used to be that women wore their jewelry because it represented femininity, but now that men are wearing it, I don't know how that changes things there. So, one survey claims that to men, bracelets and other hand jewelry make the hand of a woman look more slim and seductive. I don't know if that's true, that's just what research has said. So, the history of jewelry, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, throughout history, what was considered rare, beautiful, or valuable differed depending upon the culture. Some would fashion jewelry out of steel or plastic rather than gold or some other gem. Others might use shells, bones, pebbles, husks, glass, wood, or a precious metal or stone. So in some societies, jewelry was considered a sign of social rank. Therefore, everyone was forbidden to wear any unless they were part of that ruling class. And some would wear jewelry as a talisman to drive away evil and bring good luck. So it was superstition. Some forms of jewelry were worn, there we go, out of superstition. For example, during the Middle Ages, a ruby ring was worn on the left hand, and it was thought to bring the wearer, or help the wearer to obtain land and titles, and to protect them from various ways. So we see from history that there are varying types of jewelry, as well as reasons for wearing it, depending upon culture and region. However, we cannot base what is acceptable upon what culture may have accepted and the reason for wearing it, because everything must revolve back to how God views it and what His Word says concerning it. So we're going to look at the history of jewelry according to the Bible. We're going to begin at the beginning, the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created man, and then He created woman, and He placed them in the Garden of Eden. He did not place any form of jewelry upon either of them. And of course, we understand that He also did not place any clothes on them at the beginning either. But after they sinned, and by disobeying God, God made for them coats of skin to cover their nakedness. He did not make any ornamentation or jewelry for them to wear along with their coats of skin. But as time went on, the population began to increase more and more, but so did sin as well. And many departed from serving the one true God, and very few were found to still follow the Lord and do what was right. Even after the flood, we find sin abounding once again, as the majority of people gathered to build the Tower of Babel. So God confused the languages, an example of pagan practices such as the Chaldeans, the Egyptians, and Sodom. That's in Genesis 11 through 13. And it was after the rise of these nations that we begin to see the mention of jewelry in the Bible. The New Testament church encountered some of these issues as the apostles went throughout the then known world into pagan countries to convert and teach them about Jesus. They then sent letters of instruction, occasionally, to the churches, teaching them how to live godly and holy and truly become a Christian. Paul instructed the church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians 6:17. He said, "Wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you." So Paul and Peter both address the issues of dress and adornments in their writings to the church. Paul is teaching and admonishing in 1 Timothy 2:9 through 10. He said, "In like manner also, that the women adorn themselves in modest apparel, with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broidered hair, or gold, or pearls, or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works." And Peter taught and admonished in 1 Peter 3:3 through 5. He said, "Whose adorning, let it be that not the outward adorning, the plaiting of the hair, and of wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which in the sight of God is of great price. For after this manner in the old time, the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands." So these scriptures are speaking expressly to the women, admonishing us that what we put on and what we do with our hair should reflect that of a godly woman. Our examples to look to are the holy women of old. How we dress, how we live, how we act, how we speak, and what we put on should reflect and bring glory to Jesus Christ. So the wearing of jewelry and ornaments can lead to vanity, or it is worn because of that which is contrary to the teachings on moderation and modesty. And Paul said women should adorn themselves, or should not adorn themselves with broidered hair, gold, silver, or costly array. So obviously this applies to men as well. Just as when the scriptures say, I would that men would lift up holy hands. Well, it's also the women we need to lift up holy hands. So this applies to the men as well. But it's mainly women who struggle in these areas. Adorn means to decorate. It's an ornament, beautify, or embellish, which means to make something more attractive by the addition of decorative details or features. So Peter said that their outward adorning should not be in the plaiting of hair, the wearing of gold, or in apparel. The braided hair refers to the elaborate hair arrangements, particularly the intertwining of pearls or gold threads into the hair, which were popular at that time. Paul and Peter both admonished and taught against all showy and expensive displays, including clothing that was too expensive and worn because of pride and vanity. So to understand more fully, we need to look back at the Old Testament, which is our schoolmaster, as Galatians 3:24 teaches. Peter referred back to the Old Testament concerning examples of holy adornment. In Exodus 33, verses 1 through 6, we find that the Lord said unto Moses, "Depart and go up hence, thou and the people which thou hast brought up out of the land of Egypt." I'm going to kind of go off on a rabbit trail here. It's kind of funny when you're reading Exodus, because Moses and God have kind of a little dissertation between, it's your people, and God's like, "No, it's your people. You brought them out of Egypt." No, God, it's your people. It's kind of comical. Read it. You catch that going on. So anyway, so here God is saying, "Moses, take the people that you brought out of the land of Egypt unto the land which I swear unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, Unto thy seed will I give it, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, for I will not go up in the midst of thee." This is why he called them Moses' people. He said, "They are a stiff-necked people, lest I consume thee in the way." And when the people heard these evil tidings, they mourned, and no man did put on his ornaments. For the Lord said unto Moses, "Say unto the children of Israel, You are stiff-necked people. I will come up into the midst of thee in a moment and consume thee. Therefore, now put off from thee thy ornament, or put off thy ornaments from thee, that I may know what to do unto thee. And the children of Israel stripped themselves of their ornaments by Mount Horeb. So God had just delivered the Jewish people out of bondage in Egypt. He promised to lead them into the land of Canaan that was flowing with milk and honey, and yet the people quickly forsook God. They had picked up heathenistic practices and ways while in Egypt that they still carried with them in their heart. And despite all the mighty miracles that they witnessed, they quickly forgot and forsook the God who delivered them to make a golden calf from the gold earrings that they had taken out of Egypt. And then they worshipped it. We find that in Exodus 12:35 plus Exodus 32:1-4. Not only did they worship the golden calf made from the earrings that they brought out of Egypt, but they also stripped themselves and were naked as they danced around it. God promised to lead them into the land of Canaan, but said due to them being a stiff-necked, a stubborn people, he would not go up in the midst of them. And when they heard these words, they mourned, and no man put on his ornaments. They knew God was angry. In the next verse, verse 5 of Exodus 33, God commanded them to put off thy ornaments from me. So in response, all the people stripped themselves of their ornaments. And Moses then pitched, which means set up, the tabernacle, and he entered it. And as he did, a cloudy pillar descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle. And as a result of their consecration, the Lord came down in that cloudy pillar, and all of the people were free from ornament and jewelry as they worshipped before the Lord. In response, God spoke to Moses face to face as unto a friend. So why did God command them to strip off their ornaments? Why did the people strip off the ornaments as soon as they realized that God was angry at their idolatry? It was a response of stripping off anything that caused vanity and humbling themselves in the presence of God. The vanity of ornaments is described in Isaiah chapter 3, verses 16-26. The Jews had become proud, and this displeased God, and as a result, he told them that he would take off all their ornaments, which was a sign of pride in their hearts. And below are a list of the ornaments and the expensive apparel which displayed their pride, along with, I'm going to explain the definitions from Strong's and Vine's Expository Dictionary, as well as Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown's commentary. So Isaiah chapter 3, verses 16-26, he said, moreover, the Lord saith, sorry for the typo, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and they walk with stretched forth necks, they walk proudly, and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, and making a tinkling with their feet. So the wanton eyes means to ogle. They were having or showing excessive or offensive sexual desire. This also means to behave in a sexually unrestrained way. So, and then when it talks about they were walking and mincing, what they were doing is they were tripping with short steps coquettishly, which means flirtatious. So they were just kind of, you know how you see a young girl when she's being flirtatious and the way that she walks and she kind of does these little short skippy steps. That's what they were doing. And then it says making a tinkling with their feet. So this means to put on anklets. So they were making a tinkling ornament that they put about their ankles that would kind of tinkle as they walked. And so in verse 17 it says, therefore the Lord will smite with a scab, that means to make bald by disease, the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion. And the Lord will discover their secret hearts, because the hair is a glory to women, as we learned in the previous lesson. And in verse 18 it says, in that day the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their calls, and their round tires like the moon. So tinkling ornaments meant better. If something's better, it's found. But it means hence an anklet, a tinkling ornament. So it's talking about the anklet that was bound about their ankles. The calls means to interweave. It was a decorative netting for the hair. And then round tires like the moon means a round pennant for the neck. So basically it was a necklace of some kind. So verse 19 says, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers. Chains were a pendant for the ear, especially a pearl. It could also be a chain, as in a necklace or a collar. But it says chains, chains and bracelets and the mufflers. So it could be a pendant for the ear. Okay, bracelets, it means pressing, a wristband. And then mufflers was a long fluttering veil. So verse 20 says, the bonnets and the ornaments of the leg, and the headbands, and the tablets, and the earrings. So the bonnets were an embellishment, and in other words, they were a fancy headdress, an ornament that they would put on their head. And then ornaments of the legs was an ornamental ankle chain. I didn't include this in here, but some of the studies that I was doing, they were saying that some of it, they would actually have like little anklets that they would put around both ankles, and then it was kind of attached by a chain so that it kind of caused their steps to just be these short, trippy steps. You know, they weren't taking like long strides. It would kind of force them to take little short steps. So ornaments of the legs, and then headbands was an ornamental head garment. And then tablets, it said houses of the breath, so it was basically smelling boxes. Some say it could have been perfume boxes, I'm not sure. And then we know what earrings are. And the rings, and the nose jewels. And the list continues. And the Lord said he would take these away in Isaiah 3:18. Yes, we find at times that God's people would put on jewelry. This does not mean that it had his stamp of approval. Some habits and ways were picked up from the ungodly nations around them. For example, Jacob had lived with his uncle Laban in the region of Padan-Aram for approximately 20 years. He married 2 wives and had several sons and daughters. Jacob was tricked into marrying the 2 wives, but God's original design was 1 man, 1 wife. And somewhere they had picked up the practice of polygamy. And just because they did this did not mean that God approved, for we see Jesus correcting the false thinking concerning marriage and divorce in the New Testament. He said, from the beginning, it was not so. From the beginning, God created Adam and Eve. So Jacob's wives had learned idol worship as well as other ways from their father's house and the surrounding nations. And God spoke to Jacob. He said, return to Bethel. That was the place of his early altar. When he fled from the face of his brother who was ready to kill him, he encountered God. That was the place where he first encountered God. And he saw the ladder going up to heaven and the angels ascending and descending. So after God spoke to Jacob, he went to his family and he instructed them, put away your strange gods that were among them, be clean morally, and change your garments. That's Genesis 35:2. And they gave to Jacob all the strange gods which they had, all their earrings that were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. That's Genesis 35:4. So notice they're going to return to the place of Jacob's early altar. They cleaned house and removed their earrings. If there was nothing wrong with it, there would have been no reason for them to remove them and bury them. We find throughout history that God's people removed the jewelry when they repented, reconsecrated themselves, and turned back to God. A question that a person should always ask when you're trying to figure out what is right and what is wrong. Does it align with Peter and Paul's biblical teachings of godliness, holiness, and sobriety? Is it flashy or gaudy, drawing attention to Christ or the person that's wearing it? What is the true motive for wearing it? Does it draw me closer to Jesus Christ, or does it feed the vanity of the flesh? And it may seem cliche, but what would Jesus do? It's always a good question to ask ourselves. So, does anybody have any questions concerning any of this?